Hello and welcome back to the Entertainment Vortex. Today we were at Brendan Theaters watching Bad Boys for Life. This is another one of those legacy sequels that we've been seeing all over the course of the last 3 or 4 years that always kind of put me in a weird place. There are things that I'm super nostalgic for, and then there are things that I don't have nostalgia for, or things that I don't think I have nostalgia for, and then end up having nostalgic feelings when I'm watching. And I feel like this plays into that final motif. It's a movie where I didn't expect to be like, oh yeah, I really enjoyed the Bad Boys films. They're schlocky popcorn fare, but they're good action films, and they are a symbol of a different time frame in filmmaking as far as how over the top and how ridiculous they're able to get away with things. This movie is more of the same in that regard, a little bit toned down. Obviously, audiences for people who are out there to see things like John Wick and other films of that nature, they end up looking for something that's a little more bedded in realism. And I feel like this type of a movie is aimed more at the audience who's going to see the later Fast and the Furious movies more than this type of an audience. And for that audience, this will do great things. Being a January movie, this is probably about as good as it's going to get if you're not watching things like 1917 or the other movies that are nominated for Oscars, that sort of stuff. Now I'll start off with some of what I would feel could potentially be a negative. The story is batshit fucking crazy. That's kind of what you expect. I mean, the first two stories are not something that are things that you want to pick through with a fine-tooth comb. They're things that getting you from point A to point B and trying to bring as much action forward during that time frame, and it's meant to set up cool set pieces. This story does the same. It goes a little out of left field in a couple of areas. Because of the story being so crazy, it also creates some character decisions that maybe you won't agree with as a viewer, but they're not enough to completely pull you out of the film. It really does what it can to get you to the point where you have the setup of the two characters that you're looking for, Will Smith and Martin Lawrence on screen, duking it out with their words and taking down bad guys. Because that's what you're here to see. The problem that I had with this movie was that it feels like the first 30 to 40 minutes of the movie are paced really weird, and you don't get a lot of that action movie. You take those two characters and you separate them for a pretty long period of time. While that isn't inherently a bad thing, the length of time that they do it for makes a lot of those scenes kind of drag. And once they get back together, it picks up from there. And like I said, I think that they could have tightened up that first quarter of the film. They could have used some of that time that they took and fleshed out some of the things they did later in the movie. And obviously we won't spoil any of those things because we want you to see the movie if you're enticed by what we're talking about here. I just think that they could have done a little bit more to spice up the ending parts of this film storyline wise by giving themselves more time in the beginning. That all being said, this movie has some excellent quips, beautifully shot action sequences, and like I said, it's the over-the-top style violence that you would expect from this type of a movie. None of it feels super realistic, but it's not realistic enough for you to be pulled out of the movie, and it's just crazy enough to keep you enticed and along for the ride the entire time. I also feel like they used a really good score for this type of a film. It has that kind of that Dirty Miami kind of feel to it throughout the entire film, and that adds a layer of authenticity to a movie that needs authenticity in some variety. Just because, like I said, the scenes are so larger than life and over the top, 90s nostalgia style, that they don't really have that that could happen kind of feel most of the time. You're looking at something and going oh, that's crazy. Wouldn't happen that way, but it's crazy. Honestly though, I think this movie's biggest strength is that it's just fun. If you're looking for something to get completely immersed in, have an ironclad story that you can't really pick apart, this isn't the movie for you. If you're looking for something to sit down, have a great time, listen to some really funny banter, and watch some really, really well done, over-the-top ridiculous Fast and the Furious, or like I said, going back to the 80s and 90s style action movies, then this is your movie. Like I said, sit down, get a big bucket of popcorn, and just have a good time, have a laugh, and hoop and holler and cheer and have a great time watching some excellent action sequences. Overall, I'm going to say that this movie is a 7.5 out of 10. Like I said, it's not the best thing that you're going to see. It's probably the best thing that you'll see that is an actual January release. If you go in expecting to have a good time, then that's what you'll get from this.
If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. We give you multiple videos every single week. And we have t-shirts available if you're interested in those as well. Those are available down in the description below. We hope you'll follow us into the Vortex. We'll see you next time.